A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Then the word Khalifa also conveys the meaning that one generation after the other will succeed in mankind. On getting this information, the angel said, "Will you place there one who will make mischief and shed blood?" Now, why did the angels think of this aspect? Because human beings would be entrusted with certain powers and a free will, just like the jinns were given before. And the previous experience with the jinns taught them that such a creature creates massive mischief and destruction. So they showed their surprise as well as their concern that one such a species is being replaced by another, and the result of mischief would be nothing but bloodshed. Now we find that the angels were somewhat right in their anticipation, and we see massive destruction, what we call fasad and bloodshed around us. But the fact is that although there is much mischief in the world, but there are the peacemakers as well. There have been so many prophets coming to this earth, then the righteous believers, then people who gave their lives for Allah. They came and are still coming, and people who obeyed Allah with their maximum potential. So, in other words, along with the mischief, the element of well-being is also present. Now, this was neither an argument nor an objection on the part of the angels, because arguing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or raising objections on his decisions is a sin. And as we know that the angels are free from sin, because they do not have the option or the capacity to sin. This was just a concern, a query raised by the angels. And the angels also said that we sing your praises and glorify your name. By this, the angels did not mean to say that they should be entrusted with the Khilafah because they deserve it. They simply meant to say that we are carrying out orders obediently, faithfully, earnestly, and are keeping the whole universe clean and in order. And we also sing your praises and glorify you as your humble servants. Therefore, we are unable to understand what need then there is for a deputy. Now, the word tasbih has double meaning, that is to sanctify as well as to work earnestly and do one's utmost. Similarly, taqdees also means both to sanctify and to purify. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied to this concern and said, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. I know what you know not. This was the reply to the second doubt of the angels, that you cannot understand the need and wisdom of the appointment of a deputy as I do. And your services do not suffice for the purpose that I have in mind or I have in view. And I want something more than the services you have mentioned. That is why I'm going to create a being on earth and endow him with some powers. Thus it was what? Divine will and wisdom, that just as Allah had created beings as innocent and sinless as the angels, or beings as totally evil as Shaitan and his progeny, or being like the jinns in whom evil dominated over the good, or although there was both in them but evil dominated, he would also create a being in whom good and evil should be equally mixed, who should then try to conquer the evil in themselves and grow in goodness so as to seek and attain the pleasure of their creator. Verse 31, he taught Adam alayhi salam the names of all things. Then he presented the things to the angels and said, tell me the names of those if what you say is true. Now what comes next? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam alayhi salam the name of everything. Thus, Allah made Adam alayhi salam above every creation by giving him the quality of learning, memorizing and gaining knowledge. Adam alayhi salam learnt these names because he was made with the inherent capability to learn. And then in front of the angels, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked Adam alayhi salam the name of all the things, and he told them. And then Allah addressed the angels and said that now you tell me the names of these things if you are true in your claim. Which claim? That we are enough for your ibadah. This shows that ibadah or worship is not just to do tasbih, but the learning and teaching of knowledge as well. And gaining knowledge is superior in merit than tasbih. Although zikr and tasbih carry great merit and reward, but if one says that I will make no effort to learn, but only read nawafil and sit and do tasbih all the time, then this would not serve the purpose of ibadah. Previously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that I created the whole universe for you to gain knowledge and understanding of these things in the universe, and then via them connecting to Allah is a form of worship too. Then to gain knowledge of this deen is the best form of worship. Otherwise, the angels were already doing excessive tasbih, more than we can ever imagine to do. But the angels have not been given the capability to gain knowledge. And some of them have been given knowledge in a very restricted sphere. For example, the angel of rains has been given only the knowledge that which concerns the rain. Like there are people who instead of comprehending the Quran would prefer to do long wazifas. Now the basic theme is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give respect and honor to Adam alayhi salam and make him his most superior creation by giving him something which he had not given to any of the other creations. And this trait that makes Adam alayhi salam superior is what? Knowledge. So the first gift that was given to man was knowledge. Verse 32. Glory to you, they replied. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. In fact, you are the one who is perfect in knowledge and wisdom. Now, as the angels do not have the capacity to learn or gain knowledge, their humble reply is that Allah, all glory belongs to you. We only have that knowledge which you gave us regarding our specific tasks. And Allah, you are the wise, you are the all-knower. As we have previously read, that the angels do not have the capacity to sin as well. And showing arrogance or takabbur, what we call, or justifying themselves with wrong arguments, which is a big sin in itself. So instead of doing all this, they instantly start glorifying Allah and admit their inadequacy at once. Verse 33, Allah said, O Adam, tell them the names. When Adam alayhi salam told them the names, Allah said, did I not tell you that I know the secrets of the heavens and the earth, and I know what you reveal and what you conceal? Now this demonstration was the answer to the first doubt of the angels. Thus Allah, so to say, informed them that I am not giving Adam only just authority, but also along with it knowledge. And the chaos you apprehended from him, from his appointment, is only one aspect of the matter. It has its good aspect also, which is more weighty and valuable than the evil aspect. And thus a wise man does not give up a greater good because of a lesser evil. Now, if you study these verses in depth, you will realize the fact how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala values knowledge. What was Adam alayhi salam taught first of all? Names of all the things around him. And knowing of everything that is around us, its name, its properties, its functioning, is given one comprehensive word. That is science, which is divided into many branches according to its subject. The study of science is actually the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it is done with the spirit and intention, And the problem with us is that we tend to tilt to one side or the other. Either we say that the knowledge of deen is the only important thing and ignore scientific education or any education altogether, thinking it to be useless, or just the other extreme is that just rely on scientific knowledge and assume that the knowledge of deen is unimportant. And this thinking either produces fanatics who oppose worldly education, or on the other hand, secular people who think that the knowledge of deen is just for the Maulvis. Whereas the fact is that both are equally important. Allah does not demand from us that we sit on the prayer mat all day reading tasbih, nor that we get so involved in dunya and forget tasbih altogether. This is the balanced and the moderate nature of Islam. Knowledge of deen and dunya goes side by side. Verse 34. When we ordered the angels prostrate before Adam in respect, they all prostrated except Iblis, who refused in his arrogance and became a disbeliever. Now, after creating Adam alayhi salam and endowing him with knowledge and thus establishing his superiority over all other existing beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honors him by commanding the angels to prostrate before him. Now, this prostration was not symbolic of worship. This is not worship, which is technically called sajda ibadat, or the prostration which is done for worship. But it was symbolic of submission and giving respect, which is called sajda tazimi. And this kind of bowing down was done as a mark of respect in the previous Sharias, but it has been abandoned in the Islamic Sharia because this is the last of all Sharias, which has to last till the end of time. Therefore, anything that can open a gateway to shirk is abandoned in this Sharia. Now, this command to bow down was not just for the angels, but it was for all the creation that existed at that time. As to the question that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed the angels only, that is firstly because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that time was in dialogue with the angels already. And secondly, the angels were the superior most creation at that time. So if they were addressed to bow down, then it naturally followed, and it was understood that the other creatures were bound to do that. Now the angels immediately respond to the command of Allah, but Iblis refused to accept this symbolic subordination to Adam. So Iblis was a jinn, he was not an angel as it is commonly understood. We come to know this fact from the Quran itself. It says in Surah Al-Kahf, verse 50. Now this jinn Iblis used to do excessive ibadah, and because of that he sat with the angels. Iblis denied Allah's order to bow down because of his arrogance. In Surah Al-Araf, we come to know that he said that Allah, you created me with fire and Adam with mud. He tried to prove his point with logic. This verse also says, Aba was Takbara, who refused in his arrogance. Now, apart from the physical conditions that I am made of fire and Adam from mud, Iblis had certain psychological factors for his arrogance. One of these factors was his excessive ibadah. He thought that he had gone so superior that everyone else was inferior, and Adam alayhis salam was not worthy of this honor. Then we are also told that Iblis had attained such a high degree in science and knowledge that he was called Ta'us al-Malaika, meaning the peacock amongst the angels. How did he then come to commit such an error? Some scholars say that it was because of his pride and vanity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took back from him his wealth of knowledge and understanding, and hence he came to act like an ignorant fool. Now the end of the verse says, Wakana minal kafirin, and he became from those who disbelieve. Now the Quran describes Iblis as a kafir, a non-believer. His kufr does not arise from disobedience in his action, for according to the Sharia, giving up an obligation in practice is only a sin and a transgression and does not constitute kufr. Iblis became a kafir because he had defied and challenged a divine commandment and had, in refusing to prostrate, virtually said that in his opinion Adam alayhi salam was not worthy of it. So it was not just refusing to obey but challenging a divine commandment. And thus he tried to justify what he did. Verse 35. To Adam we said, dwell with your wife in paradise and eat anything you want from its bountiful food, from wherever you wish, but do not approach this tree or you shall both become transgressors. Now this shows that Adam and Hawa alayhimus salam were first kept in the garden for a trial of their inclinations before they were to be sent to the earth. The place they were appointed as a deputy. A tree was chosen for this purpose and they were forbidden even to go near it. They were duly warned that if they violated the command, they would be considered guilty of iniquity in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The discussion as to what tree it was and why they were forbidden from going near it, this discussion is totally unnecessary. They were not forbidden because there was something evil in the tree itself by which Adam and Hawa alayhimus salam could be harmed. It was chosen for the purpose of the trial to see how far they remained constant on obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command, as against the temptations of shaitan. For this purpose, it was enough to select a tree. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not mentioned the name and any characteristic of the tree. The garden was a very suitable place for this trial because it was meant to show to man that paradise alone was the fit place of Allah's deputy. But if he yielded to satanic temptations, he would deprive himself of it. The only way to regain it was to oppose the enemy successfully, who was always on the lookout to mislead him. The end of the verse says that if you disobey Allah, then you will be from the zalimeen. Now the Arabic word zalim is a very comprehensive word in its meaning. Zulm is violation of a right or duty, and zalim is the one who violates a right or duty. Anyone who disobeys Allah actually violates three basic rights. First, he violates the rights of Allah, who is worthy of obedience. Secondly, he violates the rights of all those things and beings whom he employs in this disobedience. For example, his own limbs and faculties, his fellow beings, and those angels who contribute to the fulfillment of his will, and all those things which he uses for the performance of the work of injustice, for they have a right to be used only in accordance with the will of the real master. And last of all, he violates his own right on himself. For his own self, he has a right that he should do his best to save it from destruction. And this too is zulm on himself when he brings the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on himself by his disobedience. That is why the Quran in many places has used the term zulm for sin and zalim for the sinner. Verse 36, but shaitan tempted them with the tree to disobey Allah's commandment and caused them to be expelled from paradise. And we said, get out from here, some of you being enemies to others, and there is for you in the earth an abode and provisions for a special period. Now look at the word فَأَزَلَّهُمَا, meaning cause them to slip. This actually is a very common and effective trap of shaitan, which he uses against people who are firmly on the right track. He attempts at the target in such a subtle, passive way, convincing him step by step and leading him gradually and slowly in an unknowing way into sinning. And he cloaks sin so beautifully that the victim does not realize that he's sinning. Rather, he assumes that he's doing something good. Now, what did he do in the case of Adam and Hawa alayhimus salam? That, as we know, that for the sake of a trial, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had forbidden them to go near a certain tree. Now, some traditions, while explaining this, tell us that when Adam and Hawa alayhimus salam entered Jannah, they loved it so much that in their hearts of hearts, they wished that they would never grow old and die and live here forever. Now, Shaitan sensed this weakness of theirs, and making use of it, he misguided them by telling them that if you eat the fruit of such and such tree, you will neither grow old or die and live in this place forever. And led them to the very tree which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had forbidden them to go near, and thus caused them to disobey Allah. Now, one common misunderstanding that exists and is often questioned as well, that what was Shaitan doing in Jannah? How did he manage to go there? The answer to this is that, as we have been told in other places in the Quran, that when he was condemned by Allah for not bowing down before Adam alayhi salam and challenging Allah, he asked Allah to give him respite till the day of judgment, and also the freedom to misguide and lead astray his slaves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a challenge, gave him that respite. Now, we know that the jinns have unusual powers which have not been given to human beings. For example, they can easily move from one medium into another. They can plant suggestions in human mind or whisper them without a direct contact. Or they can assume the shape of something else. Now, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had accepted his challenge, he did not bound him in any way, so that he can exercise his plan to the full. So he came in whatever way he managed to come and convinced them, posing to be a well-wisher, and made them sin. There are more details of this incident, but as it has been narrated in several places in the Quran, further details will come there. Then what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? At once expelled them from paradise. The words of the Quran are, and we said, get out from here, some of you being enemies to others. Now, this has been given two possible interpretations. Both are applicable separately and collectively as well. One is that Adam alayhi salam and his progeny should move away to this earth, and some of them have enmity between them. And this is true. Human beings do have enmity amongst themselves. And the second interpretation is that Adam and Hawa alayhimus salam and Shaitan all collectively should leave paradise. And the human race, that is the children of Adam alayhi salam and the jinns who are the followers of Shaitan, both are enemies of each other. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.